problem of racial discrimination has lingered in our country for several years. Racial discrimination is any discrimination against any individual on the basis of their skin color or racial or ethnic origin. Now, of course, it isn't as bad now as it was back in the day, but it is still a problem. How does the government impact our lives, you may ask? Well, the answer is they aren't doing enough. It is up to us as a community to come together as one to stop this problem, but it will never happen if our government doesn't enforce it, advocate for it, and fight for equality just as much as we do.
Yeah, I definitely do. I mean, one of the things we've been talking about together in our social justice class is just trying to understand the history of this country and how, when we do need to acknowledge there's white supremacy at the core of the history of America, which is a challenging thing for a lot of people to talk about, but it's really historical truth. And of course, like it's kind of baked into the government, right? We talked about like redlining, that there were government policies after the Depression to make housing more available, but then they were discriminatory policies that kept people of color in particular neighborhoods. Like that was, like you said, that was legal. So that was like government policy. So, but government's a huge unwieldy thing, which we're, living in the neighborhood of, and it can make positive change too, and it has, right? The civil rights movement and the laws that have been that were passed to make housing discrimination illegal. And but definitely, I think to understand the role of race in society, you have to understand government, you have to understand history and how they're connected together.
He is threatening to send in the military, saying if states don't get control, he will solve the problem for them.
We are ending the riots and lawlessness that has spread throughout our country. We will end it now.
What do you think the government can do that they aren't already doing to put an end to this ongoing problem of inequality?
Yeah, that's a great question. Like we've talked about reparations in our class too, right? And which becomes much more of a realistic, I think, issue in the last 10 years, or realistic in the sense that a lot more people are talking about it. We read some of Ta-Nehisi Coates' essay on the case for reparations, right? And one of the things the governments can do is how do we redirect our wealth into our communities, and how do we in everybody's communities in a way that helps everyone to like lift that boat up in such an unequal society. So government has a lot to play. Chris, in America, the American idea, which has also a lot of connections to white supremacy, is just this idea like get the government out of our lives. We're individuals, we're pioneers, but that's not always the best attitude towards things. So I tend to be someone who thinks government can do a lot more to kind of put wealth back into communities. Money isn't inherently wrong. It's how you use it. So wealth is really, really important. And the history of this country is wealth being taken from people of color. So how do we redirect that back in a way that doesn't harm anybody? Like you're not getting your wealth taken away, but obviously there's a lot of inequality.
Every single week, every single year, discrimination has gone on for way too long. It isn't right. It's a horrible injustice. Government, do you see this? Government, are you hearing me? We need action, and we need it now.
Do you believe that the government is doing, enough to enforce equality within our country?
The government has really been getting very, very shaky. And since the election of Donald Trump and his 4 years in office, we have had a resurgence of people who have been trying to fight against our rights. So no, I don't think the government has been doing enough, but I also don't think the people are doing enough. The people have to hold the government responsible. This is a democracy, and that means that the people decide. People have to be active, they have to be involved. They can't stay home, sit on the couch and watch TV all the time and think that everything is going to go right. We have to monitor democracy, and we have to demand our rights, and we have to hold everyone accountable. Elected officials, the president, members of Congress, city council, everyone has to be held accountable. So no, I don't think the government has done all that it should do, but I don't think the citizens have done all they should do either.
It's going to take every single one of us to show up, be present, to transform this moment. And I feel hopeful. We always say this in our movement, but when we fight, we win.